I got into skating for the convenience of it. Like, you have a favorite deli that's like 10 blocks away. It sucks to walk, so you kind of like learn to skate there. And pretty much when I lived on South Beach, I got around on a longboard. And then when I moved to New York City from Miami, it just made way more sense. It seems a little crazier on paper because you're riding around in traffic, but it makes a lot of sense if you for transportation if you need to go somewhere in the city. And yeah, I was getting places a lot faster and more efficient, and I was doing a lot of things during the day, and it just became my lifestyle.
How'd you get into the events in the scene like that?
It just randomly, like back then it seemed like it was just a few of us just skating around, and I'd run into Solomon, I'd run into Mike Dallas, I'd run into Travis, just these guys, these old school guys have been longboarding in the city, same as me, just trying to get from A to B. And you hear about this race, and I literally heard about the Broadway Bomb like 2 days or a week before. I think Mike Dallas, they told me about it, and that was in 2008. And yeah, so the events, it was just word of mouth. Like I don't think any of us had like a Facebook back then.
Right. Did you just go to the race and win it, or how did that happen?
Yeah, we went to the race like the night before. Like actually, we went out, like we skated like all night, and I think we went out to some bars. Like me and Ryan Rubin and this guy named Julian. And then Ryan Rubin and Julian were two guys we just met, and Ryan Rubin and Julian just met that night as well, and it was just like skating, so it was like this chain reaction. And then they met me, and then we were skating, and they had mentioned the race again, or someone had mentioned the race, and the next morning we go to the race, and I end up skating, and yeah, and I won it.
There was just you weren't even like feeling too competitive. It just happened. Did you realize that you were taking first place, or?
I'm not competitive.
Right.
You know, just by nature.
You were just doing your thing.
I was just doing it, yeah. And I remember like the whole race. Like I worked my way from the back and just like to the front, and then there was just Casper up there, and it was me and Casper for like 50 blocks or something like that. And I guess the rest is like history. Across the finish line. I didn't even know there was a finish line, and I ended up running into the camera.
Right.
And
and everybody was cheering for you, and you were like, all right,
well, everybody
cool.
was just cheering. I just left.
You
Oh no, did I just leave? Well, I left, and then I came back to the barbecue. But yeah, it was just great. I've never skated with people before. Mm-hmm. Like that was the first time, like the Broadway Bomb. It's the first time I skated with like more than 2-3 people. Awesome.
Have you ever had any close calls? And skating, like through traffic?
I got hit by a car 2 weeks before the Broadway Bomb, and it messed up my knee and my shoulder. I had to get surgery on my shoulder and my knee like a year later.
Right.
But Broome Street and West Broadway, head-on collision. It hit me so hard, like I did a somersault kind of, and landed like weird, and just stayed in bed for 2 weeks, like pretty much. And then started skating again, felt really strong. I didn't have a board because my board broke, so actually the board I raced on was I borrowed a girl's board. It was a loaded pintail rated for 120 pounds, and I was 240 pounds. And I was riding it for like a few days before the race, just because I needed to get around. And I would bottom it out, and I started sawing it in half. It's like just hitting the ground. So that's when I had to put these metal plates on the bottom and these little flint pads on the bottom, just to essentially hold the race, the board together. So when we were racing the Broadway Bomb, like Casper had mentioned that, like all he could hear behind him was like, was the metal plates hitting the concrete,
smacking
and it kind of freaked him out, I think. Just hearing the spark pads.
Reminded him that somebody was right behind him.
Yeah, it's like somebody's like right on you. Maybe that messed with his head a little bit.
Can you tell us about Rat Rod?
Rat Rod Design Studios. Rat Rod has evolved from like we used to say that's Rat Rod.
Yeah. What is Rat Rod, or how'd you get into it?
To me, is this just word that I apply to a lot of things, and it's just mainly kind of I respect the whole hot rod culture, and even though I'm not very knowledgeable about the hot rod culture, but the whole idea of this generation of really young kids, like going into junkyards and building these hot rods, and they call them rat rods, and, sometimes just out of like spare parts and figuring it out before the age of Google and like all this internet. They were experimenting. It was like trial and error and like baby steps. They were figuring it out on their own, and that's kind of what rat rod is to me. It's this just idea of you just focus on the important stuff. Trial and error, problem solving is kind of these things that we're born with, but just from the sign of the times of where we are, just like things like problem solving skills become a little bit numb and dull because we have all this other stimulation around us. So it's kind of like respecting the idea of, if you just sit back and think about it, you can figure it out. And that was skating to me, because I always would get a board and I would chop it up, or like put different wheels like in the back versus the front, different truck in the front, whatever felt good for me.
Right.
And that was rat rod. It was just like I wanted it to feel good when I wrote it, and for a while I was like, oh man, rat rod longboards, that'd be cool. I can start a rat rod longboards, company, and it wasn't really a term strictly for longboards. It was just how I decided to live my life. It's just kind of like, don't focus on the bullshit, set your priorities in life, very simple priorities, and live each life or each day by day, and everything you do. We got here, we went from me building on the street on First Avenue and 3rd Street in the East Village. I'd have like a chalkboard up, and I'd have my headphones, and I'd be building something, and I had business cards and say, hey, my name is Theseus, today I'm building a Murphy bed. And people would take my card, and I wouldn't even talk to them, but they'd call me or email me. And then I started doing stuff like that, and then eventually I partnered with a friend of mine, Chris Greco, who works in the event production. I'd be building stuff for them, and he was part of this company, and we always talked about, man, it'd be great if we had our own wood shop, and we made some furniture, design stuff. And my wife Karina convinced me to get a shop, and we found this space in Long Island City. Like, I think it was $900 a month, and we started in there, and then we started to grow. We busted out the wall next to us and took over that space, turned that into a metal shop, and we outgrew that space. And now we're here in Crown Heights, and we've got like 4,000 square feet. We got bigger tools, and it was just the whole process. It was like all experimentation to get to that next step that ultimately would lead us here. And so I guess that's rat rod.
Cool. So what do you focus on primarily? You've built some things for skate shops, or?
I focus on anything primarily. It's like we really, like, we're word of mouth. So, but we've been blessed with clients who recommend us, or people who find us through a number of ways, and we've been able to do really cool projects. Skate shops, like I started out building the skate shops. I did Uncle Funky's, and kind of, that was like one of my first designs. It's like, I think it's the second skate shop I built. It started out with Bustin in Brooklyn, built that out, and then we did like the Longboard Loft, and then Uncle Funky's, the Vault in the Bronx, Reciprocal in the East Village.
Been there.
Yeah. So it's like each little skate shop has its own flavor. And
you've done coffee shops, right?
Yeah, did the Continuum, was a bike shop, coffee shop, also in the East Village.
Cool.
And these clients, all my clients have been great because they've kind of like said to me, Theseus, design me something that's cool, and intuitively I kind of like feed off their personality and kind of like try to find something that fits their personality.
Got it.
Yeah, so.
And it's tough though, right? You find yourself working long hours.
Yeah.
You got a family, some kid.
Yeah. You run your own company. You do everything. You buy the supplies. You build it. You paint it. You design it. So it takes up a lot of your time. But that's the rat rod part of it. It's a baby step process that is going to lead somewhere, and it's just ultimately you're keeping that that pie in the sky within reach, and it's like as long as you have this sense of momentum every day, and that's the kind of what keeps me going. It's like, yeah, we're not really paying ourselves at the moment, you know, because we're investing more into the company, and that's how it is when you start something. It's like first 5 years, we've been doing this for, you know, almost 3 years, and we make enough to buy new supplies, to buy new equipment, to pay our overhead and our rent. And whenever we can, we pay ourselves, and it's just the way it is. And as we grow and as we do bigger and better jobs, it's happening. Every job that we've done, that's where we know we're kind of going in the right direction. Every job that we've done has been bigger than the last. It's like it's just like clockwork. Bigger than the last. Like I started out doing, you know, $4,000 small little shops and cafes, and now we're doing $50,000, $100,000 jobs, you know, and we're bidding on like $200,000 jobs, you know, and if we get them, that enables us to buy the machine to do that particular job if we don't have it already, pay ourselves, you know, grow the company a little bit bigger. But it's like we're not jumping from A to Q, you know, we're jumping from, it's literally A to B to C to D, and then after a while it's like you've developed enough traction where it kind of like coasts on its own. You kind of take, you know, ride the ride. So I've never run a business. I have 2 business partners that fill my holes. They fill my gaps. My strengths are their weaknesses, and vice versa. Their strengths are my weaknesses, and I know I can do this by myself. So I found 2 people I could trust, 2 people I get along with that are completely different than me, but as a company we mesh and we bounce ideas off each other and we trust each other, and we're kind of taking this journey, and you have to have faith. I mean, we're in it this far, so yeah, that's where we're at.
All right, thank you for your time.
Yeah, man.